Hi, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. Yeah, I am your host, the one and only Devon Harris, and our goal, our mission has not changed. Our goal is to share ideas and insights that are going to challenge you and inspire you to keep on pushing. And in the end, live your absolute best life. So, look, I'm guessing you're interested in that even remotely. So, if you are, you know you're in the right place. So again, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. We started off this year promising you to bring you diverse voices and opinions and stories, not just Olympic athletes, but authors and thought leaders and visionaries. And hey, you're in for a treat today because, actually it does tick off the athlete box, not necessarily Olympic athlete, but he ticks off all the other boxes, man. Our guest today is a visionary entrepreneur, is a life-changing connector, is a best-selling author of Epic Business, 30 Secrets to Build Your Business Exponentially and Give You the Freedom to Live the Life You Want. He's the founder of BrEpic Communications that has won the Silver Trumpet Award from the Publicity Club of Chicago. A loving husband, I think his wife would say that, a proud father, and a cool dude, my friend, Justin Breen. Justin, welcome to Keep On Pushing.
What's up, man? Welcome to my backyard.
Hey, you know what? I thought you were in Central Park for a minute there.
I am not in Central Park. I am in the northern suburbs of Chicago right now.
All right, cool. No, it's great to connect. I tell people all the time, just recently we were on a Zoom call. I presented and then you presented and I heard you presenting. I'm like, I have to meet that dude. And I jumped on LinkedIn to search for you, only to see that you had sent me a message and we're actually connected prior. So it's kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a high quick start. So like I'm bang, 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 just do things right away. So when I heard you talking, I'm like, yeah, we need to set something up. And now here we are.
Yeah, it's all good, man. So look, you've been doing some amazing things, but I am the kind of guy who like to understand the journey.
Yep.
So talk to us just about growing up. What were your early years like?
Sure. So couple quick nuggets about, my childhood. My father was 61 when I was born. My mom was 27. So it was always a different type of parenting in my household than a traditional one, I guess. My father passed away when I was 13, so he was a soldier in World War II and the Korean War, and I idolized him. I still do, even though he's long gone. But I grew up in the North Shore of Chicago, which is where I live now, and it's been a long, interesting journey to get to this point, from being a professional journalist to now being a business owner for a little over 3 years and published author and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a lot of fun, certainly a roller coaster ride. And yeah, I would love to talk more about the journey, the ups and the downs for sure.
Yeah, man. So talk to us a little bit more about those early years. What was there any one thing or any one person who influenced you the most?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. My father for sure. Just revered him. He kept a diary from his battles in Germany and Belgium in the Hurricane Forest, and somehow he was able to write a diary of the experiences while he was like in foxholes and stuff like that. And I never saw the diary until after he passed away. But it's been very interesting because he writes basically exactly like I do, in terms of as a journalist and now as the owner of a PR firm. He has a very like boom, 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 inform and entertain style of writing. And that's kind of the same way I am. So absolutely idolized him. And his spirit is definitely in my two young sons, Jake and Chase, who are 7 and 5. And Jake's middle name is Michael. He's named after my dad. And Jake and Chase, man, my dad would love those kids because they are wild. like I was and wild like he was as well.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if I may be so presumptuous to correct you though, you said your dad wrote like how you write now.
Hmm.
And I would argue that you write like him because he was first.
That's true. And it's been an interesting connection. Like, we didn't really talk much about his war experiences, but then to write that diary and keep it, and we've kept it safe throughout the last, it's almost been 100 years, 80 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch those similarities, even though he's been passed away a long time, it's really kind of remarkable and just kind of in my heart, in my soul. So.
Yeah. So you've been you were a journalist for 20 years. Is that
Mm-hmm.
something that you wanted to do when you were growing up?
Yeah, so there's a photo of me as a baby, no older than a year old, I was probably less than a year old, but sitting on my mom's lap reading the Chicago Sun-Times. And it's just been in my blood since I was a little kid. I would read the Chicago Tribune sports section with my dad. Those are some of my earliest memories, and it's really all I've ever wanted to do. So it's been nice being able to still be a journalist in a slightly different way, owning a PR firm. But yeah, I'm a high fact finder, so I'm always like trying to find interesting things to write about and interesting, quirky, inspirational, connecting people. Like it's like my drug is hanging out with those type of folks, and this
Mm,
allows me to do that endlessly.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So 20 years as a journalist and then you became an entrepreneur, or is it that you are always an entrepreneur trapped in a journalist body?
What an excellent question. Yeah, so I was an intrapreneur, not knowing I was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
As a journalist, they would always find these weird jobs for me to do because they didn't know what to do with me. And so I was like hybrid roles, like basically every place I ever worked. And then when I started this entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, oh, this is why I didn't fit in a traditional, cubicle type setting, this type of job, because I was never like, that's just not how my brain is. I was always destined to be an entrepreneur. And it was great to have that 20 years of background to give me that foundation. But then now my brain has been allowed to evolve in so much more, profound ways because I'm an entrepreneur and I have all this freedom.
Yeah. So was there just in one incident, or was it kind of a process? And if so, can you talk us through that? How you made a transition from being a journalist to, starting your own business?
Yeah, so like you talk about the journey and you talk about the story, and I'm so attracted to people who have overcome things because I've overcome things myself. So just very quick background. I was working as a full-time journalist, and on February 10th, 2017, had a 5-minute meeting with the owner of the company and the managing editor, and through no fault of my own, but they essentially demoted me to a reporter, and from an editor to a reporter, and then cut my salary in half. So as you can see from my backyard, it's not it's not that inexpensive to live here. So it was like, what the bleep am I going to do? That's essentially the first line of my book. So
Yeah.
for the next several weeks, I tried to find a full-time job. Couldn't find a job. On April 16th, 2017, I was doing some like freelance stuff on the side, and I decided to incorporate into this company with no one knowing that I was doing that. So I worked full-time as a journalist with half my pay while I had this business with no one knowing about it. And I reached out to 5,000 people to get my first 5 clients, which I think goes with the keep on pushing theme for sure. So I got my 5th client around June 1st, 2017, resigned from my full-time job the next day. And then 2 days after that, the next Monday, Robert Feeders, the top media journalist in the Midwest, did a story that I had started my own firm. So certainly an interesting couple of months, definitely stress-filled, and it's been onward and upward ever since that Robert Feeder article for sure.
Yeah. So 5 clients. Why 5? Why not 7? Why not 10? What was
You know
magical
what? No
about
one's ever
5?
asked me that. Well, so because when I got to that fifth client, boy, I'm glad you asked that, because no one's ever asked it. And then now you'll see why, because that fifth client allowed me financially to earn about the same amount per month that I had been earning as a journalist. And so I said, okay, I'm making this much per month as a journalist. When I get to that level, it turned out into the fifth client. I'm like, okay, then that's enough to at least give me some type of foundation to really get it started. If I had been terminated from the journalism job, then I would have had no choice. But I wasn't really in the position to, at first, just resign from my job and then just announce the company without having a big enough foundation. So I got that fifth client, financial foundation, and then let it rip.
Yeah, makes sense. You created that foundation. So, dude, you went through 5,000 names to get 5 people.
It's probably more. It's just 5,005 just sounds, it just sounds better. But like at the time, I had probably 30,000 followers on social media. And I was just going through all of those, like, no matter what they did, like saying, what I was up to, and, basically begging for help.
About that a little bit. What was your pitch to them?
Wow. What was my pitch? It was, hey, I'm writing about human interest kind of things. I'm running social media accounts, getting folks in media, any opportunities. And obviously most people didn't respond to that. Because what I've learned is people that directly ask me for something without me even knowing them, really, that's just a terrible idea, but I didn't know any better at the time. And, but it's a numbers game, even at that point. And it did literally pay off eventually. I would not recommend that strategy for anyone else. That's why it's in the book I wrote. Like, here's what I did, and it did work, but like, don't do this. But, the other thing is, like, you figure out what doesn't work and then who you don't want to work with. And then, if your strategy is to reach out to 1,000 people to get one client, then go for it. But I wouldn't recommend it for people starting their own business.
Yeah. But even with that though, the rejection rate was horrific. How do you deal with the rejection? I'm looking at Mr. Rejection blocker right there now.
Yep. So if you cannot deal with overwhelming amounts of rejection, then I would not recommend becoming an entrepreneur, because the worst day of corporate life is doesn't even scratch the surface compared to the worst day of being an entrepreneur. Now, the beauty of that is when you get through all that, which I have in so many ways, you have this immense joy in your life, and family time, personal time, financial freedom, working with only the people you want to work with, all this great connectivity. But to get through that point, it takes not like months, but it takes years of like figuring things out at a much higher level. And if you're not prepared for that type of rejection, then this is not the way of life for you. It's not a good fit. But as a journalist, you're used to being rejected and scoffed at. And the general public is I'm guessing, they're not very nice to journalists. And so you just kind of get used. Well, right. So that reaction right there. And and even me, for the most part, I wrote overwhelmingly positive, inspirational stories. But just to get to the Chicago market where I ended my career, I was rejected from basically every Chicago journalism outlet, before I got the job at DNA Info. So I was used to being rejected. And that just prepared me to being resolute and determined for this life.
Indeed. That's awesome. So, you went through 5,000 people, you found your 5 clients, and now you have a business, as it were. What's a problem? Because obviously every business, is trying to solve a problem. What's a problem you're trying to solve?
So my entire business model, again, I was a journalist for 20 years. My entire business model is based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I have created a model that solves the problem of annoying PR firms where journalists don't gain anything from it, only the client does. So a traditional PR firm sends a useless press release. Then as a journalist, you get hundreds of these a day from people you don't know. So as a journalist, I was getting annoyed by people hundreds of times a day that were sending me total BS nonsense. So my firm creates actual stories that are interesting, similar to what I did as a journalist. It becomes a link on the client's website under news or blog or whatever, and then I take that link and pitch it to media all over the world. And if media is interested, I put them in touch with the client contact moving forward. So this solves the problem that I experienced as a journalist, saying, why are you people wasting my time? I'm providing good content that's actually newsworthy, that serves the journalist and the client. And I'm providing, things that the client will benefit from, and the journalist, and a very streamlined process that is much more easy to understand for clients and journalists. So it's like I've solved all this, and people laughed at me at first and rejected it and scoffed it. We're talking about rejection. Other PR firms were like, this isn't going to work. I go, okay. So those folks, it's been interesting because you talk about rejection, and I remember so many times getting laughed at for having this model. And I'm just like, just keep pushing on through. And now here we are, where I only work with visionaries who look at things as investments, not costs. I tell people no all the time if they're not good fits for my brain. And I'm constantly getting intros to some of the best companies and entrepreneurs on the planet that want to hire my firm. So what I found is these real elite entrepreneurs that have an abundance and investment mindset, those are the ones that become my clients, because they have the same, have been rejected millions of times and were scoffed at when they came up with these ideas, and no one believed it was going to work. And now here they are doing, well in every phase of life.
So that's I know we've been touching on the word rejection quite a bit, but it seems such an important hurdle that all of us have to overcome, whether it's business or people laughing at you, and people laughed at our team when we first came out. So it seems that if you choose to chart your own path, a path that's different from the one that everybody is accustomed to, then you're going to have those people who are going to look at you and flatly tell you it will never work.
Correct.
And so that requires, I guess, a tremendous amount of faith in your own abilities that you can pull this off, correct?
So there's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. In terms of connecting people and what I'm doing with my company, BrEpic, and the book that I wrote, I know that I'm better than almost anyone on the planet. And I'm supremely confident in that. And I'm a really good dad and above average husband. I am terrible and useless to society at everything else. Cocky people think they're great at everything and don't want to get advice or feedback on things. I love being the dumbest person in the room because I can learn so much from all these amazing entrepreneurs and CEOs. I'll just listen to them, and then I'll just kind of squirrel interesting things into my brain, and then I'll utilize a lot of those into my company. And that's what the book is about. But to be the best, you have to be confident and first and foremost believe that you are the best. And I 100% believe I'm the best in those few specific things. And that attracts other people who believe that they are the best in their respective companies, and ones who, again, were rejected or laughed at and that kind of thing, and have succeeded in spite of it. And so essentially what my company is tens of thousands of people like that around the world who are extremely successful, have the right mindset, and we're constantly introducing each other for mutual gain. And then again, the byproduct is I'm constantly getting intros to all these amazing people like that want to hire my firm.
Yeah, yeah. So you spoke about the fact that, you, because of your experience as a journalist, you have figured a way to cut through the clutter, as it were, by creating, great stories. Is that how you get your clients' name to the top of the list? By
That's a really
creating
good
these stories?
question. Yeah, so folks hire my firm for two reasons. I know what a good story is that journalists actually want, because I was a journalist for 20 years. And someone can talk to me for an hour and 55 minutes will be totally worthless to anyone's time, but in 5 minutes I'll know what the story is and then frame everything around that. So that's one reason. And then two is that I have connections with journalists all over the world, and they know when I send them something that it's worth their time. And I know how to contact them in a way that's not annoying, like a bulk email that I received hundreds of times a day from other PR firms.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have a journalist contact in some obscure area, or anywhere area, I know how to find them. And when I do connect with them, they'll look up my background, because most journalists like me are high fact finders, and they'll be like, oh, this guy was an editor in downtown Chicago. And then they'll look up my site and be like, oh, this guy actually knows what he's doing. And they're more responsive to that. So journalists are hyper aware of BS artists and people who are just full of nonsense, because they've been dealing with that their whole careers, like I dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone like me comes along who actually knows what they're doing, they want to work with those type of people. And they know that the content that is being sent to them is legit and newsworthy.
Yeah, cool. So you go from, contacting about 5,000 people to find 5 clients, and now you're kind of humming. How, but we talk about the fact that you have to keep on pushing, you have to keep on growing. So how do you plan to do that? How do you plan to scale BrEpic to the next level?
I get that question all the time. And I am an oddball, even for entrepreneurs. I have a very strange brain. So there is no scaling in the traditional way in terms of employees, offices. To me, I don't understand that at all. The beauty of my company, as I said before, is that it is a giant incubator of geniuses around the world. And we are constantly introducing each other for mutual gain. And the byproduct is I'm always getting these intros to people and businesses around the world that want to hire my firm. So again, the beauty of that is that it is constantly growing. Every single day, I spend 80 to 90% of my day talking to awesome people like you, rarely about business. And we just talk about joy and fun in life and our families and stuff. And because our brains mesh, those type of connections and connectivity, it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and it just keeps growing and growing. So that's how your term scaling, that's what it is. There's no limit to how big this company is, because it's not about employees. It's not about offices. It's about the network. And that's just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And there's literally no limit to it. And it's endless fun. Here's my kids, by the way. This is Chase.
What's up, Chase?
And here, Jay, come here, man. We're doing a live TV podcast here. So, all right, guys. So go over there for a little bit, okay? And I'll hang out with you in a minute, okay? So that's my life. So my wife's a pediatrician. She's at work. And on a day like this, I'm watching my kids and doing work. So this is pretty typical. I'm surprised they didn't video photobomb this earlier. So, and they'll probably start fighting and doing all sorts of stuff. So
I got you. So I am guessing, Justin, that you have failed once or twice.
Once or twice? Oh my God. 1 or 2,000 times.
Yeah, talk to me about that. How do you deal with failure?
Just push through it. I mean, I love failing. It's great. And so again, you just saw my kids, and I'm sure they're going to start yelling at each other in a second, which is kind of funny. But so I teach my kids every day about failure, that it's so important to failure. And that's in my book as well. Like, if you're like coddled and you can't handle failure, like when there actually is failure, it can be crippling. Mm-hmm. So I've just learned from failure that like greatness comes from that. Like, I met my wife because other relationships didn't work out. I got the job at DNA Info because I didn't get jobs at other places. I started my company because I had my job salary cut in half. I couldn't find a job. Any client or potential client where it said no, it didn't happen, it just happened for the whatever reason, and it's always led to the right fit clients. So I love to fail, and actually, like, now I'm just so used to it that it's just, it's any good entrepreneur, they're going to fail a million times. So
yeah, indeed. So one of the words you've been using during our conversation here is mindset.
yes.
Talk to us about, well, not just a growth mindset. Obviously, you have a growth mindset, but you also have an abundance mindset.
That's right.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts and what it means to have an abundance mindset.
Yep. So there's two kinds of mindsets. There's scarcity and cost mindset, and then there's abundance investment mindset. And the only people I work with that they have this abundance, they think of things as investments, not costs. So when you have that positive, forward-thinking, opportunistic attitude, it attracts other people like that. So most people in society now, they have the scarcity cost mindset where they're panicking, they're holding things back, they're not investing, they're afraid to pivot, they're afraid to do anything. And those folks, they'll never be clients, they'll never be in my network, they'll never be, referral partners or anything like that. Those people, because I'm so direct, they just kind of fade away right away.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I'm so direct, it only attracts people with the same mindset and brain that I have. And so the beauty of that is that most of these incredibly successful entrepreneurs, business owners, and CEOs, they all think like that because that's how they've created successful businesses. Well, 97 or 95% of the population is panicking or not doing anything. These are the folks that are leveraging this opportunity to create abundance, not just for themselves and their businesses, but their network as well.
Yeah. So as we find ourselves in the middle of this pandemic, created by COVID, you figure that the people with the abundance mindset that are going to, whether you're an employee, who are going to kind of come out smelling like a rose, as it were.
Yep.
Interesting. So you've been in business now for just over 2 years?
3 years. April 16th, 2017 is the official incorporation date, and the general public found out like June 5th, 2017.
Got you. There's like one major thing that you have learned on this journey as an entrepreneur. What would it be?
The number one thing, do what you love to do and what you're good at. So when I first started, they fighting in the background. When I first started, I was doing basically anything I could to get a client or a contract. Here, you can sue me. And so after a couple months, I realized I really liked writing these stories and then pitching those stories to media. I was just really good at it, and I liked doing it. So I dumped everything else, started raising my rates with that simple process, and then really honing down on that process and refining it, and then raising rates, and then doubling down and raising rates. And so it never feels like work to me, and I just love doing it. So it's always just fun. It's not a job or anything. It's just like endlessly interesting to me to talk to awesome people and write their stories and then connect with the best people on the planet. So that's the number one thing I learned is, like, in my opinion, based on my experience, you don't spread yourself too thin with doing a lot of things. You just focus on one really good thing that you really like doing and that you're really good at.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're right. There are so many opportunities out there in the marketplace, and I guess it's easy to want to, wrap your arms around all of them, but it really dissipates your energy and your focus.
That's right. And so I'm in all these high-level networking groups. One of them is called Strategic Coach. It's an international group. So my group meets in Chicago, and I'm the only one from Illinois in the group. Everybody else flies in, and they're all CEOs and founders and stuff. It's not like the second in command or whatever. But the main thing I've gotten out of that group, it's called unique ability. It's what you're really good at and what you like to do. And so that's all. 99% of my day is focusing on my unique ability, is telling these stories, pitching them to media, and networking with great people around the world. And so again, because you're constantly doing things that you like to do and what you're good at, it's never work. It's just fun for me.
It's what I call plurk. It's playing and working, as it were.
Oh, I love that. Plurk.
Plurk.
I'm going to use that. Is that okay?
We'll talk.
Well, I'll attribute it to you, man. Plurk. That's great.
Yeah, but here's a kicker though, Justin, because every now and again you'll find someone who is really good at this particular skill, but they enjoy something else. How do they square that round hole, as it were?
Wow, that's a really good question. They're really good at a particular skill, but they really enjoy something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one to answer. The landscapers made a hole, buddy. So I think there's got to be a happy median with that. Man, can you give me an example? Because my brain doesn't work like that. Like, yeah, I just know what I like to do and what I'm good at.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of popped in my head. I wish I had an example to share with you. But usually the things that you like are the things that you're good at. But I can't unfortunately come up with an example.
I mean, I really enjoy running, but I wouldn't make a career out of it. I've run a couple marathons.
Right.
I just like to run because it is a good way to start the day. It keeps me balanced. It gives me some time to think about things, think about the day. I mean, it's part of my life, but it's not my business.
Right.
So
I guess we're talking about sometimes separating your hobby from your vocation, as it were.
I would say that's a good way of looking at it. Something you really enjoy doing can be your hobby. And when you have this entrepreneurial freedom, assuming you'll have more time to do the things that you like to do.
Yeah, completely. So we're talking about the one thing that you've learned on the journey. What's the one thing on this entrepreneurial journey that perhaps surprised you the most?
It's one thing. So as a journalist, I would write 2 to 3 stories on deadline every day. And if someone asked me to write a story, oh, thanks, buddy. We just put an ant on me. So if someone said, hey, when will this story be done? I said, oh, it'll be done today or tomorrow. It would actually be done today or tomorrow. It has surprised me, and it's been my number one challenge in terms of frustration, is that 99% of the world is not like that. It is a slow, slog-like process. Even media, like it's just slower. The waiting for contracts to get signed is slower. Getting meetings set up is slower. Waiting for media to do stories is slower. And it's been really surprising because, again, I'm just like boom, 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 boom. And I've had to adapt and really change my brain to accept that and just appreciate that's how most people are. And it's also been the most surprising thing too. I just figured you just say you're going to do it and it just gets done that day or tomorrow. You just get it done, but it's just not like that. So
not quite. Yeah. So Epic Business, 30 secrets to build your business exponentially and give you the freedom to live the life you want. What was the inspiration behind the book?
Most of my day is talking to people like you, awesome entrepreneurs and leaders, thought leaders, just great people with inspirational stories. And for the 30-month anniversary of my company, I posted on social media 30 things that I had learned. And at the time, and I still do, I had a giant social media following, and everybody's like, oh, you have to write a book on this. So that was October 16th, 2019 that I posted that, and everyone's like, you got to write a book. So I signed with one of the top micro publishers in the United States. Her name is Rebecca Grider. She's amazing. I wrote the book in 43 days, and it came out on Kindle online a couple weeks ago, and it just launched on softcover. So that's what I mean. Just got done.
Yeah.
There's no but that was the inspiration. Is all these amazing people said, you need to write a book on this. So I said, okay. And I wrote a book on it.
So in your book, as it's because you're giving us obviously business advice, and I really resonate with all the lessons actually
Thanks.
that you're sharing. But you start off by saying that you have to prioritize family time over work time. Talk to me about why that is not just important to you, but makes good business sense to all of us.
I mean, all this business stuff, it's just gravy on. So you see my kids now now they're fighting each other with sticks and you wipe like a snow brush.
Yeah.
And so one has got a snow brush, one's got a like little shield. And so, so that's my life. Like this isn't, this is what happens every day. And so if you can't put your family first, then all this other stuff is, it's worthless. It doesn't matter. I've talked to so many entrepreneurs who are very wealthy financially, and I asked them, "Oh, hey, how's your family, or do you, your kids, your grandkids?" And they're like, "Oh, I never had children or never got married." And I'm telling you, the look on their faces, you can just see it. And so, I spend a lot for a dad. I don't know any father who spends more time with their kids than I do. And even before COVID, like I spent a lot of time with my kids. And money really doesn't mean that much to me. It's it's good to have money and do fun things and stuff. But if you're not close with your family, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, because in the end, having a big bank account is nice, but if your family aren't around, then the bank account does you no good, does it?
Yeah, who cares? It's useless. So you only need how much money do you really need? Money provides you with security and a cushion, and then it gives you opportunities to do fun things. That's really what it is. But after a while, it's like it's just money, and then it's about having experiences in life and experiences with your family. And so that's what I like doing. So
in chapter 6, you speak about the fact that you should never stop learning, which obviously resonates with my keep on pushing philosophy that life is about constantly growing and learning. Share some thoughts with us on that, if you could.
When you said plurk, I'm like, oh, I love it. Boom, I just learned something. That's a great term. So I got so excited about that. I think I talked about it earlier in this interview, but I love being the dumbest person in the room. And most of these entrepreneurial groups I'm in, so I'm in EO and Greg Reed's group, Secret Knock, I'm in that, Strategic Coach. And usually I'm the dumbest person in the room. Not just in terms of revenue earned, which is not as big a deal to me, but in terms of business acumen, in terms of life skills, in terms of like what really matters. And so what I found is because I'm the dumbest person and because I'm making the least revenue, for the most part, when that's the other thing that more revenue leads to is that they have their brains have evolved more usually, because for the most part, when you have all this money, you can devote more free time to things that you want to do and spend more time with your family and really think about what life really is. And so I just listen to these people, and I'm like a sponge. And learning I was like an okay student or whatever. Like I got a full academic scholarship to college, but like sitting and reading a textbook, oh my God, it's a nightmare for me. One, because I don't have any attention, but two, like that's not how I learn. I learn by listening to people. And if something like registers in my head, I get very, very excited about it and just pings. And then it's just there forever. That's what the book really is all these lessons I've learned. So
yeah. So you finished up the book, which is kind of where I usually start a conversation on success. You finish up the book on vision, right?
Yes.
That you need a big vision for a brighter future, and I couldn't agree with you more. But let's kind of wrap up there, because look, we're sharing ideas here because we want people to have a brighter future. Talk to us about the whole vision process. and how you arrived there?
The co-founder of Strategic Coach, his name's Dan Sullivan. He preaches, people ask him all the time, how do I have a better business? How do I have a better life? He's like, well, envision a bigger and better future. Envision a bigger and better future. And they're like, well, what does that mean? What do you know? I need to do this. And he's like, no, envision a bigger and better future. So when I first started my company, I would have thought that sounded like a maniac who should be locked up in a mental institution or something like that. But now it's like, oh, my brain has evolved where it's like, I just get it now. So when you reinforce this idea and having this great vision, it happens. I'll give you a great example. Before every day this year, really every hour, I've been saying global growth, global growth, global growth. I've named the year global growth. A friend of mine, Joe Martin, names all of his years and he recommended I do that. So I just say that every day. And two of my most recent clients are in Toronto and Guatemala. Most of the conversations I have now are with people outside of the United States. The connections that I'm gaining, it's unbelievable. And again, a lot of it's through these amazing entrepreneurial organizations. But when you reinforce that and believe it and you live it, it just happens. And then the people that think the same way, they just find you. It just organically happens. So I imagine a lot of people listening to this, they either don't believe it. Two, they totally believe it and they're going to be like, oh, I got to talk to this guy. The third type of person's the interesting one because they're on the fence. They're like, oh, wait a minute. This is kind of how I'm thinking. And then those are the people that are able to transition. And that's what's been great about the book and the way I talk. It's like, it actually has led people to changing their brains. And I'm like, so like honored that that's happened because, like there's so much abundance and joy out there right now. If you look for that and think about that, it'll just naturally, organically happen.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, though. There are, all these different camps, those who absolutely believe what you're saying. And
Right.
then there are those who think you're a little bit cuckoo.
Right. That's fine. Oh, most of the people think I'm cuckoo, man. It's okay, though. They'll never be in my network.
Crazy talk. But I think people fail to realize that the things that you think about, the thoughts that you allow to percolate in your mind, in your brain, and you kind of put it out in the universe and it happens. And it's true for every single thing, right? And so what you're talking about is doing it deliberately.
Yes, intentionally.
Success requires deliberate action. Look, we're going to create results, and most of us are creating those results subconsciously. Creating a vision and repeating that mantra to yourself every single day is you taking deliberate action to create the life you want. So thank you for that lesson.
I appreciate that. And, to dovetail about your life and then a lot of the Olympic athletes that you talk to, and I'm guessing you would agree with this, but like people see the success and the final outcome. They don't see the daily, hourly, probably just work, grinding, and then belief in yourself to get to that point. And entrepreneurs are very similar to that entertainer / athletic at the elitist level mindset. And the higher level that your brain is at, which my brain is constantly evolving in great ways, the higher, the better heights that you get to. And so I look at this as just the beginning. It's going to be awesome. Even a week from now, the people I meet, it's going to be incredible.
I agree. It's going to be awesome. So listen, talking about the people you meet, if there's someone out there who wants to meet you, how do they find you, man?
I mean, a lot of ways. My company's website is BrEpicLLC.com. It's B as in boy, R-E, P as in pony, I-C as in cobra, LLC.com, BrEpicLLC.com. Or I'm all over social media. I just passed 21,000 followers on LinkedIn and over 10,000 followers on Twitter and tons on Facebook. So you can find me. And trust me, the people that want to find me,
what's your Twitter handle?
At BrEpic Breen.
All right, cool, awesome. Any final thoughts you want to leave with us, bro? I know you have a couple of nuggets of wisdom there.
Well, I enjoy talking to. I could talk to people like you for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I never get tired of it. And I'm so excited that you have this platform because you are enabling people like me, graciously allowing people like me to spread this message that is so important and that will change people's lives. So I really appreciate you letting me talk about this stuff.
Well, and I appreciate you for coming on. I think it's a symbiotic relationship, right? I have a platform, you have a message, and both of us want to make a difference in the world. So we kind of team up and to get it done. So, hey, you definitely epitomize the keep on pushing philosophy, my brother. Thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom with us. I want to challenge you and encourage you, as I often do, as I always do with my audiences, live and on the platform here, to keep on pushing. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that subscribe button and hit that bell. You'll get a notification every time we post a new video. And don't forget, share it with your friends, man. They want to be inspired as well, right? So share it. Don't keep it. And before you go on to the next video, visit my website, www.devonharris.com. Keep on pushing.